Thanks, Convener. Item 1, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations?
Not seeing MD indicating.
Yeah, it takes us on to item 2, Education Scotland Act 1980 Appeal Committee, and you have this for approval.
Okay, this is quite straightforward. We're all happy to approve this. So, any questions? Nope, that's been approved. Okay.
Item 3, Senior Phase School Leavers Update Report. This is for noting.
Okay, Councillor Crichton, I see you have a comment, so I'll bring you in.
Thank you, Convener. I welcome the positive direction of travel highlighted in this report, and particularly the improvements in attainment across a number of our secondary schools. The information at 5.3.7 is really heartening. I would especially like to recognise the success of Harse Academy in my own ward. The schools achieved a very significant increase in complementary tariff points of the lowest attainment of 20% of pupils, rising from 62 to 109 points and performing above its virtual comparator. This is important because it demonstrates the real progress of the young people who can often face greatest barriers in achievement, and it reflects the hard work of pupils, staff, families and the school leadership team. It is encouraging to see such a strong evidence of the support and the ambition in our city schools. I would also like to take the time to acknowledge the positive progress highlighted across other secondary schools, including Baldragon Academy, Morgan Academy and Grove Academy, all of which recorded important improvements in attainment measures. These results show the improvement is taking place across the city and demonstrates the collective commitment of our young people, teachers, support staff and school learners to raising standards and outcomes for every single learner in our city.
Thank you, Councillor Crichton, and as echo some of your comments there, particularly thank staff and the young people for all the hard work that they've done to see this improvement. So thank you for your comments. Councillor Cruikshank, I see you've got a comment and a question.
Thank you, Convener. On 5.1.2 SQF level 4, from 21 to 23, we were equal on 85% with our virtual comparator. 2024, we dropped to 80% compared to the virtual comparator, then 82% in 2025. Can I ask what the reason for this was and what has been done since to improve these outcomes? I have a further question. Whilst I welcome the improvement made at Baldragon Academy from 74.4% in 23-24 to 85.4% in 24-25, demonstrates an increase of 11%. May I congratulate the hard-working staff and pupils on this achievement. How can we replicate this across all secondary schools? SQF, SCQF level 5, from 21 to 24, we were ahead of our virtual comparator. Now we are behind them. What can be done to turn this around? And lastly, 5.2.2 ASN needs. Why is there no virtual comparator noted in this section and only number of pupils? I note that the number of ESN staff have dropped over the past few years. So what are the SNP administration doing to improve the outcomes for this cohort? Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. So I'll pass over to Mr. Fleming to respond.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Cruikshank, for the comments and questions. Quite a lot there, so I'll try to take them in turn. You're right in terms of obviously your observations around SCQF literacy numeracy at level 4, level 5. What I would say is that every young person, every cohort of young people are different, and as the report highlights, we have to treat with caution the comparisons in terms of year on year. But young people and schools can only improve from where they've been, and it is good to note that in level 4 and level 5 performance have both improved year on year from the previous year. So what we are doing now in terms of your latter question, sharing good practice where we are seeing improvement, is now having that impact across city, where we're starting to see an absolute narrowing of the gap to be only slightly below the comparator now, reflecting that clear year on year improvement. Thank you also for the comments about Baldragon Academy, and in terms of the question about how can other schools learn to mirror this improvement, what I would say is that Baldragon Academy has learned from other schools to get that improvement that it has seen this year. So a really super example of the impact of every Dundee learner matters strategy, where head teachers work in school improvement partnerships. They visit each other, they support, challenge each other, and they share practice across the estate. So we're seeing more and more of these examples, as we've seen in Baldragon this year, in terms of not only narrowing the gap to the VC, the virtual comparator, but actually surpassing it as well. In terms of additional support needs, it's a really complex area. Children with additional support needs are not a homogenous group. And in Scotland, there's quite a myriad of ways to record additional support needs, which can vary from a child who's perhaps had a significant physical injury that might last a year, to children who have complex, life-changing, neurodivergent and other needs. So we always have to, with caution, compare ASN groups, and because of how varying the needs can be. So what we do is look within that, and we compare children to their own performance. So that's why there is no comparison with others, because how people record additional support needs can vary quite significantly. But I will not answer the question I think you directed to others, but what I will say is we respond to meet the needs of our changing profile. And we are putting in additional staff around additional support needs, given the rise in needs and the complex needs within the service. We are adding those staff in over the coming weeks and months as we move into the next academic session. I think I covered most of the key points, Councillor Cruikshank, but please come back if I haven't.
Are you happy with that response, Councillor Cruikshank? Sorry, put your light on, put your microphone on, please. Sorry.
Yes, I'm happy with that response. But in terms of my final comment about the reduction in the ASN staff, how can we improve on this and turn it around so that young people have a better chance of achieving a lot more than what they are just now?
I don't know if Ms. Fleming wants to add, and I'll maybe make a comment after that.
Thank you again for the question. I think approximately 50% of young people in secondary schools are recorded as having at least one additional support need. So it's really important to recognise that some of these young people don't need any additional in-class learning support. It could be out with class and other family and community needs. But actually, again, our ASN, a number of children with additional support needs is increasing. It's the complexity of those needs, and we continue to respond to that. This time every year, we do a review of our staffing levels in schools in terms of the numbers, the type of teacher and professionals that would help. And as a result of that analysis, we are putting additional staff in to support across the whole estate to support our children with a specific focus on support for learning due to this additional support need. So we are putting this additional staff in for August.
And I think just all I can do is just reiterate what Mr. Fleming has said. You know, the support for the young people is not a numbers game. It's about making sure we put the right support in the right times and actually do that review every year to make sure that the right support is there for every young person, because it's quite a complicated and complex issue to make sure that support is there all the time. I hope that answers your question. Okay. With that, I'm not seeing anybody else want to come in, so can this be approved? Yeah, okay. Okay, Arlene.
Okay, that takes us on to item 4, review of devolved school management scheme. You have this for approval.
Okay, I see Councillor Coleman, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. On the face of it, this seems like quite a sensible proposal. However, can officers please provide reassurances to the committee that the removal of rates and cleaning from devolved school budgets will not result in any reduction of overall resources available to schools, and they will be in no way financially disadvantaged from this?
Okay, Mr. Fleming, I'll pass over to yourself.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you as always for the question, Councillor Coleman. Yes, I can give that reassurance. In some ways, it's a technical exercise that the budget is the exact same that comes into the Children and Family Service, but instead of distributing that out to the individual settings, we keep that internally and manage that as a central team. The budget does not shrink in any way. We're just something that's quite hard for schools to control. We're taking that away because actually we don't want that to impact in any way in terms of staffing as previous questions allude to, and indeed on outcomes for children and young people. So we manage that risk along with Mr Thompson and others within the council.
Are you happy with that response, Councillor Coleman?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Okay, I see that Mr Gibson has his hand up. So Mr Gibson, I'll pass to yourself.
Just wondering about the monitoring arrangements whether they exist to actually assess whether the devolved staffing decisions actually end up increasing the workload or negatively affecting retention and well-being of teachers in Dundee.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'll pass over to Mr Fleming.
Thanks, Convener. I'm not quite sure I caught all of that, but as always, David, in terms of our one-to-ones, in terms of our DNCT subgroups, we have one again tomorrow, and we have regular meetings with our schools, and as always, any feedback is most welcome. But the monitoring arrangements direct with head teachers as accountable, and as have that autonomy around devolved school management. So there's been no feedback in that regard. I can't imagine how it would do. Trade unions, teachers and support staff and head teachers themselves are represented on this group. So you have come up with this proposal, which is a regular review. So we don't anticipate it, but the avenue is there, of course, for any feedback, and we'll always appreciate that.
Okay, are you happy with that response, Mr Gibson?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you much. Not seeing anybody else want to come in. Can this report be agreed? Yeah, okay, and that's the business for children and families. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Neighbourhood Housing and Communities. Arlene, if you could lead us off, please.
Thank you. Item 1, declaration of interests. Are there any declarations?
Don't see any declarations, thank you.
Okay, that takes us on to item 2, registered tenant organisations. This is for noting.
Okay, very straightforward agenda note. I will open up to questions if there are any. Is that you on this question? Councillor Cruikshank?
Just to welcome the Registered Tenants Association. I remember back in the day where we had a tenants association in practically every area in Dundee. The question, I suppose, is how do we engage in other communities and ensure that they have a tenants association as well? Thank you.
We do have several groups in several areas, and maybe if Tony or Lees would just elaborate a little bit further on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Cruikshank. So in addition to the registered tenants organisations as noted in the agenda note, what we've also got is 15 other groups within the city which have been designated as resident groups or groups pertaining to a specific geography. So although those groups haven't chosen to register through this formal process, through our community service, we do directly engage and work with those other groups. And that's in addition to the other work that we do within communities, for example, around local community planning partnership and working with other communities groups as operating. So I hope that clarifies.
Thank you for that, Louise. Okay, with that, is that noted?
No.
Oh, apologies, Councillor Mills.
Yeah, it's just to welcome Lochie Residents and Tenants Association to being recognised. I think it's amazing work that they do throughout the year, especially with their Lochie Light Night. So it was just to put on record that I welcome this very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So with that, is that agenda noted? Thank you. Arlene, back to you, please.
That takes us on to item 3, procurement sourcing strategy approval for removals framework, and this is for approval.
Again, I will just open up to questions. Should anyone have any? Yeah, see no questions. So is that approved? Thank you. That is the business.
Good evening. I'll just get started, Willie, please.
Okay, thank you, Convener. Firstly, are there any declarations of interest?
I don't see any. Just move on.
Okay, thank you. There have been no declarations. It takes you on to item 2, Common Good Fund Revenue Budget. Your ASCII recommendations.
Provides details of Council's Common Good Fund revenue budget for 26-27. Councillor Duncan, please.
Thanks, Convener. It's really just an opportunity to give a shout out for this really good scheme, the Common Good Fund. I don't know that everybody in the city is aware of it, but as you will know, and most of us will know, it does a lot of really good things throughout the city. Obviously, I'm most familiar with my ward, so for example, in Broughty Ferry, it's been helping the Broughty Ferry YMCA, Broughty United Football Club, and the upcoming Broughty Ferry Park Run, as well as Sam H, which does an awful lot of good work around mental health. So just really, as I say, a shout out to the Common Good Fund and for, you know, the public out there to be aware of it.
No, thanks very much for your comments. And 5.2 lists the number of organisations that have applied and been successful in that. And I think I just recognise and acknowledges what you've just said. So thanks for that. Councillor Naklo, please.
Thank you. I think just following on from Councillor Duncan's comments, that I'm just wondering, a question for officers, what do we do to promote the fund so that we have as much diversity in organisations applying? As when I look at the list, it's incredible, the amount of organisations that have been supported, and all of them doing amazing work, but there is a little bit of a, I'd say like a little bit of a gap between maybe minority organisations being involved. I wonder what we're doing to make sure that they know that this fund exists.
Thanks for the question. Mr. Thompson, you want to take that?
Thanks again for the question. So at paragraph 6.3, the report notes the various channels that the grants or the availability of the grants will be advertised through. I'm happy to liaise with Chief Exec Services and provide further information to that if there's anything additional that would be required, Councillor Arnakla.
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful. I met at one of the community events we did recently, I met a very new organisation which is supporting the African community in Dundee, and I'm just thinking from kind of having to go and look for it, it might be quite good to do some outreach, just letting partners know that this exists, and obviously kind of the social media channels, maybe promoting it through videos and things would maybe broaden the reach.
Thanks very much for that, and I think that's will be done going forward. I don't see any further questions or comments. I'll take that report as agreed. Thank you. Next one, Wally, please.
Yeah, thank you. Takes you on to item 3, increase the school clothing grants. You're asked to agree the recommendations.
As I say, the report increased the Dundee City Council clothing grant is actually protect and reflect on the inflation and continue supporting families in most need, and these grants are to be increased by the amount noted. Councillor Hunter, please.
Yes, thank you, Convener. I just want to welcome this. I think it's a really important thing to do. And I would note, you know, in 4.1, we talk about how the Scottish Government and COSLA came to an agreement on this, you know, a number of years ago. However, this council did actually predate that with the decision to increase the clothing grant. I think that was the right decision then, and I think it's the right decision again to increase it. It really makes a huge difference for families right across the city, and I just want to take this opportunity to welcome this.
Well, thanks very much for your comments, and I think we all acknowledge the important part of this to every family in need. I don't see any further questions or comments. The report is agreed. Thank you. Please. Councillor Naklas, apologies for that.
I think so.
Councillor Short.
Thank you. When I was in the midst of it, I didn't quite understand what the poverty premium was, but I have the example of me being very, very fortunate and having parents that could afford to buy my son Lacoste trainers for his secondary school period, whereas if I had been buying trainers out the local supermarket, I probably would have had about 5 or 6 pairs of trainers, which would have cost me more than the Lacoste, but I couldn't outlay them at full at the time, hence poverty premium. And so it's always good to see this coming through, and especially at that higher amount, as we all know, as the cost of living rises and the cost of bringing things to the shops in our area will continue to rise. It will mean that there'll be an impact on the price of that clothing come June, July. Also like to point out that it was always good to know that that money was in quite early. As soon as the uniforms hit Marks and Spencer's, I was in buying shirts for the next time. And also the fact that uniforms don't just need to be replenished at the beginning of the session, and it's good that we've got organisations like Uniting for Uniforms across the city that can help support when parents inevitably skin their knees and put holes in their trousers or do outgrow that uniform that they got at the start of the session. So great to see this happening. Thank you.
For your comments. Councillor Nuttall, please.
Yeah, it's of course a much needed grant for families across the city. I don't think my question will be able to be answered, but I was just maybe officers can get back to me. I know that in Angus some schools are opting for just hoodies and like black trousers or leggings, and I'm not sure the financial implications. I'm assuming that it makes it maybe more standardised and it might be cheaper. Is anything like that happening in Dundee that we're looking into that at all?
I think I'll bring in Mr. Fleming in the first instance. Once you get started.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you for the question, Councillor Nicola. In short, yes, all our schools have quite significant commitments to cost of the school day, and some of this will be evidenced in the child poverty report that will be coming out sooner. Sorry, the inequalities report. But most of our schools now would go for various options. So, for example, Greenfield Academy, I go in and I see lots of young people in splendid black jumpers or black trousers, so not badged or labelled, and others will have. So we'll always try to have a mainstream item that is affordable as part of our cost of school day measures. But in addition to that, we would look to how we support with second-hand or new to you clothing reels as well. So there's a number of measures that are in place to ensure that young people can afford and look the part in terms of attending and being connected to their school.
Thanks for that, Paul. Let's see, Billy Keaton, sorry.
Convener, it's really just to make that plea to parents that, instead of sending kids to school in Lacoste trainers, that might actually take the whole of that £170 grant, that we try to be realistic about that as a uniform that suits the working day at school, and try not to make other kids feel out of place that they can't afford to put on the sort of £170 trainers, because we're not getting a grant that can afford anything like that. And the closer we can get to something that's uniform and substantial enough to do through the school year, the better.
That's a fair comment. Thanks very much for that, Bill Keenan. Don't see any further questions or comments. So to that report is agreed. Thank you. And moving on, Willie, please.
Okay, thank you. I take you on to item 4, Hospital Fund and Johnston bequest. Grasky recommendations.
Report provides details of additional income likely to be available this year from the Hospital Fund in Johnson bequest for distribution to pensioners in financial need, and sets out the information related to the older people with advice service currently delivered by Dundee Citizens Advice Bureau. I think that's Councillor Lynn, please.
Thank you, Convener. Back in the olden days when I was first elected, it was up to councillors to disburse the funds from the Johnson bequest to deserving recipients. And I think the new way of spending this money is a much better way of doing so. But I noticed there's still a small amount that's 1,760 that's disbursed by way of a pension every year. I'm just wondering how the eligibility for that small amount of pensions is decided.
I can bring in Claire, please.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. It's a historical arrangement where some years ago it was agreed that each ward would allocate one pensioner. The number of payments made each year has gradually decreased year on year since 2013 when a decision was made no longer to nominate. So as the people leave the fund, if you like, those numbers continuously reduce each year. And just for information, there is currently 16 pensioners within the fund for 25-26.
That's clear. Councillor Black, please.
Thanks, Convener. I'm interested in the fact that we are paying, we are trustees of the fund and we're paying £8,000 in rates and utilities. And if you were able to take that £8,000 and add it on to the £30,000 for the advice service, you could fund it better and probably get a better product. Now, I understand from officers that that is part of the building, the hospital trust owns a building, and part of the building is not let, and therefore we have to pay utilities and pay rates on that part of the building. And so the first thing is I'd like to ask a question of officers, what are we doing to try to ensure that we get that property let? But I've got a more general question. The hospital, there's a tidy sum of money there, £850,000 roughly. And then there must be the building that we own, which I presume we own outright. And again, adding those two together, it may well be that we could do more to satisfy the original intentions of the trust by perhaps selling the building and investing the money in another way. And I wonder, when do we actually review these things? There are other charities which we are trustees of, including the Camperdown Estate, which I believe is maybe getting mixed up, but from looking at the accounts, I think there were millions in that. Maybe we can do more with that money and perhaps even do something to help solve the housing emergency. So I wonder if we could perhaps have a briefing in a bit more detail for councillors about what's in the various accounts and what we could actually do to put the money to better use. Maybe everything's fine, but we should surely review this.
Thanks very much. We'll bring Claire in the first instance.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Black, for the questions. In terms of your first question, in terms of the letting of the properties, that is part of the wider city development property portfolio initiatives, so that will be picked up under that. And in terms of the investment and some options, happy to bring back a paper to committee.
Thanks for that. Mr. Presswood, would you like to make any comment on the rates question, or the rates part of it? Okay, thanks very much for that. I think let's get a briefing on that one. Jimmy, something, is that okay?
Yes, that would be helpful. And if we do get the paper back to committee as a result of the briefing, that would be helpful too.
Thanks very much. And Bailey Keenan, please.
Yeah, just to say, I think I would agree with Councillor Black and think it's something certainly worth looking at. I indeed obviously got council to agree that if we were selling the Belmont estate, that it would come back to council as to how the money was spent. My view on how that would be spent would have been if we invested in housing to help the housing problem that we've got in Dundee, then obviously there would still be a rental income coming in to a charity. So there is a number of different ways perhaps we should look at these charities differently and see whether there is something that we can do that would be better.
No, like yourself, I agree with what Councillor Black has just intimated, and I said Scottish is going to bring something back to committee in the forthcoming committees anyway. I don't see any further questions or comments, so we'll take that report as agreed. Thank you, and that's the business of this evening.